everybody, it's Chris, your community mixologist, and we're here with your bar from afar. I always feel that's really exciting. I wish there was like a big wash with a big title that said bar from afar that goes on there, but we're doing this live, so I don't have those kind of devices. Anyways, I had a lot of fun picking out what we were going to do today. Spring is in the air, and for those of you who are on Cape Cod, it's been some dreary weather. Kind of miserable out. We get some really nice days, we get some really crummy days, and there's really no consistency. Harkens back to one of my favorite sayings that Garrison Keillor used to say. One of my favorite sayings from Garrison Keillor. He said that March is the month that teaches people who don't drink what a hangover feels like. And here in Cape Cod, we have January, February, March, July, August. So we're kind of in the middle of that for our dreary spring. But we want to try and brighten some things up with some spring-style cocktails. And that, plus the fact that everyone's kind of in and isn't able to get out as much as they would like to right now, I was thinking, what can we do with stuff that's kicking around the house? And I said, well, a lot of us probably have bottles of wine that have been sitting on the shelf, and maybe we haven't got a meal prepared or anything. Where it warrants opening up a big full-bodied red, or maybe you're not interested in a dry white this time of year, and you're kind of coming up with something interesting to do with these. So I said, well, what can we do with these wines that sit on our shelves and collect dust? We're not wine collectors, and we don't have large wine cellars, so letting wine sit around and collect dust is not always the best thing. So I did a little bit of research, and I found that there are some actual really wonderful-looking cocktails that include wine as one of their principal ingredients. And I decided, well, let's have a little bit of fun with that. So we're going to make 4 drinks today. 2 are a little more complex. 2 are really, really easy. And we're going to start off with the New York Sour. Now, the New York Sour is basically just a whiskey sour with red wine. We're going to make it from scratch. We're going to start off with our cocktail shaker. I'm going to make some spice here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add 1 large egg white. Now, for those of you who are like, egg white, what do you use that for in a drink? Some of you already know this. Some of you may not be familiar with this. Egg white gives it a little bit of foam. It makes it kind of brighter and frothier. So what we're going to do is we are going to separate our egg here. And we'll do this so you can do it on camera. And for those of you who are not familiar with the easiest way to separate an egg, you just kind of crack it in half and pour the yolk back and forth between the 2 halves. And what you have is an easily separated egg white. So we're going to add that 1 egg white right in there. And then to that, we're going to add 4 ounces of bourbon or rye. The original recipe calls for a rye whiskey, but since this is something a little warmer, because it's kind of a dreary day today, I wanted to use something a little more unique. So today we are going to be using Cleveland Underground bourbon whiskey. It's finished with a sugar maple wood. Gives it a little bit more of a woody, sweeter texture. So we're going to try some of that. Plus, it looked really interesting, and I was curious. So we're going to do 4 ounces. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then this asks for us to add some lemon juice. So we're going to add about 1.5 ounces of lemon juice. And probably will only add about 1 ounce to that, because I always feel like too much lemon juice in a sour just makes it too sour, if you know what I mean. So let's just add 1 ounce of that. And to that, we're going to add 1 ounce of simple syrup. And for those of you who are paying attention to the class we did last week or the week before, we've made the simple syrup. It's very easy, and you can make it with lots of different infusions. If you don't remember, it's one of the easiest recipes in the world. Equal parts water and sugar. 1/2 cup of water, 1/2 cup of sugar, cup of water, cup of sugar. Bring it to a boil, make sure it dissolves, and then let it cool. That's your simple syrup. So we're going to add 1 ounce of that. Then what we're going to do is we are going to shake that up. And the egg white, you're going to see, adds a really neat, interesting, frothy texture to it. And we're going to add that to a rocks glass. Shake that up really good. And we are going to strain that. We want to be able to get as much of that froth in there as we can. leave a little bit of space there at the top, because that's where we're going to get really creative. I'm going to get my spoon. I'm going to put some more of this froth in there. You can see how it frothed up. This might be the cocktail version of a latte, for lack of a better term. Put the froth in there, almost like a cappuccino foam. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a nice full-bodied dry red, and I'm going to pour it over a spoon onto the top so it has a nice even distribution. Now, not the neatest pour in the world, you can see how that's layered up really nicely. You have those really, and you get the foam on top. So you get a really, really interesting drink here. I'm going to let that set for a minute or two because I want to move forward to some of these others, but I'm really looking forward to trying that one. This is our New York Sour. I'm going to grab a paper towel. And again, that's basically just a simple sour recipe with a float of red wine across the top. Now, the other one that I wanted to make today, which is a little more on the complex side, the second of our complex drinks, is something that I've actually named the Vineyard Negroni, because I didn't have another name for it. It was basically, the recipe said, use a Negroni, but substitute the vermouth for red wine. So I said, well, okay, how does that work? There were no specific recipes, so I looked up the Negroni recipe, and I said, well, let's make this a Vineyard Negroni. So we're going to use a vineyard wine instead of the vermouth. So again, we start off with a shaker. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse this out. And what we're going to do is we are going to add 1 ounce of dry gin. Today we're going to be using Citadel gin, really nice gin from France, actually. Really nice aromatics in that. So we're going to add 1 ounce of this. Actually, for purpose of this, we'll do 2 ounces because we're going to make it a equal parts drink. So 2 ounces of gin. And then I'm going to add 2 ounces of Campari. Never made a drink with Campari before, so this ought to be interesting. And as I've said before, all of these are experiments. This is the first time I'm trying it, and I'm trying it with you. So it's always fun to see how these play out. So here's the Campari. And then what we're going to do is we are going to add 2 ounces of red wine. Now, I seriously doubt you actually have to measure out the red wine for this. The recipe calls for it to be measured out, but honestly, you can really do it to taste, whatever you feel is appropriate. So let's try this one. Hope we don't make a big mess. Strain that out. And it says to garnish it with just a twist of orange peel. So I've gone ahead and pre-done some of that. We'll get some of this in here. Put that in. So that is our second beverage. The next two that we're going to make are really, really easy. It doesn't require a whole lot of blending or mixing at all. In fact, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make them pretty much straightforward. One of them is called the Kerr. We're going to make this called K-I-R, Kerr, and then the Kerr Royale. Basically, the difference is the Kerr is white wine, the Kerr Royale is red wine. And today we're going to make a white wine Kerr, and we're going to make a Cape Cod Kerr. Because in my explorations, I found some really interesting liqueur, and I wanted to be able to experiment with that as well. So we're going to start off by getting a couple of wine glasses here, which I should probably put some ice in this one. And the directions for both ask us to add a 1/4 ounce of berry liqueur, a 1/4 ounce to 1/2 ounce. There's a couple of ones out there. They recommended creme de cassis, which is a currant-based wine, a currant-based liqueur. I wanted to try something a little more interesting. And some of the recipes called for either entering using a pear or a peach liqueur. So I have here Mathilde Poire, which I believe is French for pear. So we're going to use some of that, and we're going to use this with our white wine. And then for the Cape Cod Kerr, we are going to use our red wine with a Massachusetts cranberry liqueur called Cranberry, simply enough. So let me go and rinse this out. And we're going to start off with the white one. So starting off, we're going to add some of the berry liqueur. You can use a berry or any type of brandy. I suppose you probably could change it up with that as well. But we're going to try this one. Never used it before. It smells good though. So we're going to add, let's add a ½ ounce of that to this here. And for the other, we're just going to add a ½ ounce of the cranberry. And get it open. The nice thing about these is they're so easy to make. They're actually really great for springtime receptions or special events because honestly, you don't need a whole lot of the liqueur. All we're going to do is we're going to take these right here and we're just going to add wine. Directions are pretty straightforward. Slowly add the wine so that it blends up and it mixes. And you get a nice summery cocktail there. We'll do the same here with our red. And here we have our Kerr and our Cape Cod Kerr. Really, really easy to put together. Last drink I'm going to make tonight is really, really simple and a lot of fun. This one is called the Siete y Tres. You say Siete y Tres, that's Spanish, that's 7 and 9. It sure as heck is. It is 70% Coca-Cola and 30% red wine. And you're probably saying, what are you talking about? Why would you do something like that? Well, this is a very, very popular drink in the summer, especially south of the border. It's really easy to make. So we're starting off with a bottle of Mexican Coke. What's the difference between Mexican Coke and regular and the Coke you get in the stores and the cans? The Coca-Cola that you get in the cans is made with corn syrup. The Mexican Coke is made with cane sugar. It's just a personal preference of mine, but I also like to be a little bit of a purist. I like the flavor of the cane sugar cola. It just adds an extra layer of dimension to the flavor, especially if you're used to drinking the Coca-Cola out of a can with the corn syrup. So this one is ridiculously easy. The Siete y Tres, 2 parts Coke, 1 part wine. It says to garnish it up with chopped olives or chopped apples if you want, and maybe even a slice of orange. And that sort of gives you an almost sangria-esque quality, but it's made with Coke. So those are our drinks this week. I'm dying to try these out. Let's see how we did. Let me try our New York Sour. And that does have a really full flavor to it. The wine adds an earthiness to the sour that you wouldn't normally expect, and plus it looks just so interesting. Moving forward with our Negroni, this is really just an excuse for me to try a bunch of different drinks. Now that is a really, really interesting drink. It tastes good. It tastes like a page out of The Godfather almost. I know that in the 50s and 60s, Negronis were the drinks that were very popular with the mob, and you see that in these mobster movies. This is like a step back into the past, and yet the wine really adds a nice earthiness to it. It gives it that full-bodied wine, gives it a nice gravity. As far as the Kerr is concerned, again, these simple, light, bright, easy to put together. And just that splash of liqueur just takes it to a whole new level. Again, you can add the liqueurs to your taste. If you feel like you want a little bit more punch to it, you can add some more liqueur. That's the nice thing about these, is that there's no real guide aside from what your own personal preference is. The last one I want to try is the Siete y Tres. This just looks like so much fun. And I never would have imagined that Coca-Cola and red wine would pair so well together. What a great drink. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had fun with me today. I had a lot of fun putting these together and researching them. As you can see, they were all really, really easy to put together. This just took us a few minutes to slap it all together and move forward. And just a couple of interesting things just to make them look more unique and more clever, like the egg white in our New York sour, or adding the red wine to our Negroni, making that traditional Negroni with the red wine, to the drinks that are geared towards just being wine-based, which are our Kerrs, our Cape Cod Kerr, and our Siete y Tres. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a good time. I had a great time with you. Here's to you. Have a great day. Stay safe, and we'll see you back here again next week.